Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in. This is the Guardrail webinar for Monday, March 21st, 2022. My name is Justin Morris. I'm with the Louisiana Department of Transportation. I am the Guardrail Technical Committee Chair. Also on the call are Ron Stanovic with West Virginia. He's my Vice Chair. We have Mr. Cabell Garvey with the North Carolina DOT, who will be doing a North Carolina DOT testimonial, and he's also a technical committee member. We also have Robert Sarcinella, who will be referred to as SARC or SARS. He answers to just about anything. He's with SARC Engineering and Consulting Services. He is one of the NTPEP auditors. I'd like to give a special thanks to Mr. Bill Reel. He's a NTPEP contractor. He helped put together the bones of this presentation, as well as Matthew Blumen. He's the NTPEP liaison for this technical committee, and all of our industry members for their participation with this program. So what we'll be talking about today, we'll have the NTPEP roles and the audit program. We're going to talk about what is an audit and why are they necessary? What does the audit, what's the audit program's purpose and what are some of the benefits? Again, what is the audit program and their quality management? Later we'll get into some state transportation agency responsibilities in accordance to the Code of Federal Regulations 637 and the FHWA's policy on contractors' quality control test results for acceptance. The governing document for this technical committee and audit, this particular audit program, is labeled Guardrail 2001. It's the evaluation of highway guardrail, Guiderail manufacturers. We will also get in briefly on a mile-high view of AASHTO M180, which is the governing standard for specification of corrugated sheet steel beams for highway guardrail. And for other informational purposes, we'll briefly touch on some of the AASHTO and ASTM reference standards for you to go back later and find the information that you'll need. Another document that we use here for the NTPEP audit programs is SPO1, which is the qualification for highway product manufacturers through the use of the NTPEP audits. That is to be used in conjunction with Guardrail 2001. We'll talk about the Guardrail audit process and the requirements, as well as data mine and how your state can utilize that information. Lastly, to finish up, we'll give a few state testimonials. You'll hear from me throughout the presentation, giving this presentation, as well as how Louisiana utilizes the program. You'll hear from North Carolina DOT, and unfortunately, Ron won't be here to give his West Virginia testimonial, but you can always reach out to us at any time to talk about this. We'll go over briefly the committee, the Guardrail committee, what we do, our participants, kind of a brief overview, and again, how you can utilize the program best to fit into your quality control program. At the end, we will have an opportunity to have questions, so if you could please hold them until the end, or feel free to enter them into the chat at any time. At the end, we will address your questions. So before we get any further, I'd like to get a feel for our audience. If you could please respond with your role for your agency. We'd like to know who we have. So what is your role with your agency? Are you A, materials, B, construction, C, design, or D, other? And once we have a little bit of time for everyone to answer, we'll have Matt Blumen take over with the roles of NTPEP. Okay, looks like we have about 67% materials, 0 construction, 9% design, and 24% other. So that's a pretty good spread.
All right, thanks, Justin. As Justin said, I'm Matt Blimmen with NTPEP. If you ever have questions about the Guardrail program or NTPEP or how NTPEP can help you, I'm the liaison of this committee, and I'd be the person you could reach out to for questions on that. So getting a little bit into NTPEP and the audit programs, AASHTO developed the National Transportation Product Evaluation Program as a technical service that evaluates highway product manufacturers on behalf of you, the states. And this is done to assist with developing cost-effective evaluations. And we do this by a variety of items, including eliminating duplication of testing and auditing by the states, eliminating duplicated effort by the manufacturers providing test data or having audits for you, and to provide a partnership with the states and industry to help bring some more expertise when needed. So what we do with the audit programs is provide audit information from manufacturing plants. And these audits include evaluations of the quality management systems that the facilities provide, on-site audits, which are done annually, and random product testing, which is also done annually during the audits. And we'll get into more of each of these items during the presentation. So in the end, after an audit is completed, and once again, we'll get more into this, but NTPEP provides documentation to states that cover everything that was looked at during the audit, as well as informational items that basically make it seem like you were actually on site. So states that aren't able to travel to get on site for these audits, or want to concentrate on other areas, these are a very streamlined approach for you. And then each state can incorporate all of this information in any way that they see fit as part of their quality assurance program to develop their APLs, QPLs, and so on. And Justin's going to get into the CFR requirements now for 637.
Thanks, Matt. So the text that you see here on this slide comes straight from the FHWA technical bulletin. It's essentially the backdrop of what we're going to talk about today. And you're going to hear us repeat the same things over and over again on what the state's requirements are on a quality assurance program, and how this technical committee can help you establish your AML, APL, QPL, whatever your individual agency might call it. So the audits, and the physical presence in the facilities by the states are becoming a limited resource that many of the state DOTs do not have anymore. A majority of them no longer have the personnel to staff the audits, or they might not have the technical expertise. So a lot of these states rely on QC data for acceptance from other avenues. So the state transportation agency's responsibilities are to establish quality assurance programs. So each state transportation department shall develop a quality assurance program, which will assure that the materials and workmanship incorporated into each federal aid highway construction project on the NHS, which is National Highway System, are in conformity with the requirements of the approved plans and specifications, including approved changes. The program must meet the criteria of 637-207 and be approved by the FHWA. There's a lot of information there, but I feel like it had to be read verbatim. So within that as well, there's verification, sampling, and testing, as well as random samples. These verification samples are tested and performed by a qualified testing personnel employed by each state transportation department or its designated agent, excluding the contractor or vendor. These samples are used for quality control and verification, sampling, and testing, and they shall be random. So what the purpose of NTPEP for your agency can be is they can be your designated agent. So why are these audits necessary? What about using the contractor's QC for acceptance? What is your level of risk? The statement in this slide, is taken verbatim from an FHWA website, and it details that although the contractor is required to perform quality control, it is not allowable for the DOT to use for acceptance without validation. So, the policy on this use for contractors' quality control and test results for acceptance requires validation of all data not generated by the state Transportation Department or its designated agent if used in the acceptance decision. So members can access this audit information provided by NTPEP, and NTPEP can serve as the state's quality verification or validation, which to me is a huge benefit for states with struggling resources. So we'll wrap up here a little bit on what are some of the benefits. Well, as we said, the work plan describes, the audit program and has been developed with input from DOTs and industry and manufacturers. It addresses the reduced need for in-house testing or travel to the manufacturing facilities, which is limited by travel budgets of the states. The availability of testing or auditing that a state may not have access to without NTPEP. A lot of states don't have the ability to audit these facilities themselves. So the governing document for this audit program is GRL 2001. It covers the specific quality management systems, inspection, audit requirements, and testing criteria for the NTPEP evaluation of highway guardrail products. The program provides audit information from manufacturing plants that comply with the quality control and product testing requirements established by AASHTO M180. AASHTO member departments can use this information in their quality assurance program for manufacturing, for product acceptance. And this may include the information to establish a qualified manufacturers list, QPL or AML or both. By participating, the industry agrees to produce products that meet or exceed the requirements in applicable ASTM or AASHTO designated standards and follow the minimum quality control provisions of their quality program. This document, GRL 2001, is to be used in conjunction with SP 01. Let's see, I lost my notes here. I just would like to make another note that the audit program does not pass or fail anything. The point of the audits is to find nonconformities, findings, and the corresponding corrective actions and resolutions. It is the participating state's responsibility to use this information provided by NTPEP to ensure that guardrail manufacturers are providing products to the state that meet the requirements set forth by your agency. A lot of information there can be found in Guardrail 2001. Next slide, please. I think we're on. Okay, yeah. Brand registration and guarantee is also something that is located within the Guardrail 2001. It's the standard that, let's see. Okay, so let's back up. The idea for the standard brand registration guarantee was to include the minimum requirements established by AASHTO M180 and satisfy a majority of the participating states. We did this technical committee did this by polling the participating states for what they required on their annual brand registration and guarantee. And then this technical committee developed this standard brand registration guarantee that you see here on the slide. That information was put into this format, and it can be found in the Annex X.2 of Guardrail 01. Please note, again, though, that it is the industry's responsibility to abide by any requirements specific to that governing agency. So if this standard brand registration guarantee does not work for you, those manufacturers will have to work with your individual state. We're going to kind of briefly touch over AASHTO M180 and what it does. It is titled the Corrugated Sheet Steel Beams for Highway Guardrail. It works in conjunction with Guardrail 2001 and the NTPEP contracted lab to do the random split samples. They test and evaluate for yield strength, ultimate tensile strength, elongation. They do dimensional checks on the base metal thickness, as well as type of coating, weight of coating, and thickness of coating if the coating is conducted by the manufacturer in-house. Currently, the Missouri Department of Transportation has the contract to conduct all NTPEP guardrail testing, and we thank them for their efforts. These are just some AASHTO reference standards that are helpful. We talk about the zinc, we talk about the sheet beams for the highway guardrail. the zinc coating of the steel wire rope and fittings. AASHTO T65 is the massive coatings, and T244 is mechanical testing. This slide is just here for your reference. We're not going to get into each individual reference standard. Same thing with your ASTM. These are some of the equivalents that are used to test for the zinc. So if you need anything, this is where you reference yourself or your engineer or anyone who's evaluating Guardrail. So now that we've mentioned SPO1 a few times, what is it? SPO1 is titled The Qualification of Highway Product Manufacturers Through the Use of NTPEP Audits. SPO1 is the standard practice which covers the auditing requirements, testing criteria, and is to be used with the specific work plan, in our instance, Guardrail 2001. And let's see, it can be found under the document section in the NTPEP webpage. So before moving on, I'd like to do another quick poll question to get a feel for whether the people in the states on this call even maintain a QPL, APL, AML for Guardrail in general. Please respond, which most closely works for you. Okay, so 65% say yes and 35% say no. Well, that's good. Hopefully, after this presentation and you do some more research into what the technical committee can provide, maybe you can look at developing an AML if needed. So now I'm going to pass it on to Sarks. He'll discuss how the audits are conducted and how they may help you develop these lists.
Thank you, Justin. As Justin stated earlier, my name is Robert Sarcinola, and I generally go by Sars. So if you hear that name, you can associate it with me. But I'm basically one of the auditors that has been involved with the NTPEP program for 11 years now, doing audits. And you want to use an audit for certain types of materials and certain types of situations. And so that's why when you look at NTPEP, it's split into two houses. One is product evaluation, which basically tests materials and produces results for the DOTs to use. And the other side of the house is the audit side. And in order to have an audit program that works best, the audit must be, as it's stated there, based upon a specification that most all the DOTs utilize. And for our particular situation that we're dealing with here, that's AASHTO M180. And next, the audit has to be based upon a uniform or automatically recognized by all DOTs product specification. Once again, for this particular product, we're talking about AASHTO M180. And then the audit requirements that the auditors go ahead and follow will be located in the NTPEP work plan. And they must also be common or agreed upon by all the state DOTs that are utilizing the program. So as Justin said earlier, the DOTs and manufacturers work together to develop the work plan that basically will satisfy most all the people's needs. So what it comes down to is the evaluation of highway guardrail and guide rail manufacturers. Plain and simple for this product line, that is the NTPEP program. It's the work plan, and it's the NTPEP work plan with that audit format that's developed. Okay, next I'd like to go ahead and talk about the audit process. what we do is we divide that into 3 separate areas. As you can see, the pre-audit, the audit, and the post-audit. So with the pre-audit, what we're doing there is every 5 years, we go ahead and get a copy of the manufacturer's quality manual along with any other supporting documentation. And we review that against the requirements that are located in the previously mentioned document SP01. If you go into that specification or the process that we're utilizing in SP01, Section 6 covers what the quality manual is supposed to cover, and it covers it in quite a bit of detail. Next, after checking the manual and everything looks okay, then an audit is scheduled. And for the audit, we go out and we do an on-site review of the facility. And as you can see, we go through the different areas. We go through the manufacturing with the Guardrail product. We go through inspection. The majority of what they do when they're producing Guardrail is inspection. There's a very small, if any, testing associated with this particular product that they would be able to perform. And then we look at the equipment that they're utilizing, and in particular, we're looking at the test equipment, and we check to make sure that everything is being done properly, to make sure they're using equipment that's properly calibrated or verified or standardized. And then with any good audit, you have to have a documentation. So we go through the documentation of their calibration records, their training records. We also take a look at whether or not they perform management or internal reviews of their setup. And then we also pick some random products, and we look to make sure that they maintain and have available the documentation that starts basically from when product comes in the door, and that would be raw material product, and they have traceability all the way on through to the finished product as it goes out the door. And these audits are performed annually. And then when the audit is complete, now we're in what we call the post-audit phase. And this is where we go through closing out the audit. If we have any findings that are found that are addressed in the form of a corrective action, we're working with the manufacturer to make sure that we get all the information from them. And then all that information is then posted onto the website. So the audit results that you'd be looking for are posted on a secure site called Datamine, and we'll discuss that further. Now, for the Guardrail pre-audit, as I said earlier, we go ahead and review the manual against requirements of SP01. If you look in SP01, they're required to cover the following areas. They have to have a quality mission statement or something similar to that that kind of talks about how they do quality and how they feel about quality. We also look at the position descriptions. That could be in the form of a flow chart or individual positions that are laid out. And we try to make sure that they have all the areas covered in order to, provide good quality control. And then we look at, as I said earlier, the quality control personnel training. And then there's also something that we look at called a competency evaluation, which we require the manufacturers to perform on an annual basis. And a competency evaluation is someone that's knowledgeable looking at the people performing the inspections and making sure that they still have the competency to perform them properly. And that's done by someone on staff with the manufacturer. Then we also look at whether or not they're performing internal audits and management reviews. These items are extremely beneficial in looking at their process and taking time out really to take a look at their process and determine whether or not they have any issues, and then put those issues into the next, which is the corrective action procedures, to see that they keep up with and they solve their problems and they document them, so that if they have a problem again, or they see they have this problem happening on a more regular basis, then that helps them better control their quality. And as I also stated, we look at the lab equipment plan for calibrating, verifying, and standardizing equipment. If you look at SP01, it near the end of the specification or that document, it talks about whether or not certain pieces of equipment need calibration, whether it needs verification or standardization. And then we also look at how they record and maintain the product information on their test results or inspection results, the forms that they utilize, and who verifies that this is all being done properly on behalf of the manufacturer. And then at the end, we take a look and we witness their quality control inspection while we're there. We have them demonstrate it in front of us and tell us what they do, typically what they do when they run into issues that come up. And so that's pretty much it as far as everything that we're looking at in the manual, as well as, you know, what we do when we go out and we do an actual facility audit. Now, the products that are under the specification or the product specification M180, and this is the current version. When you read that specification, the items that are covered are the beams, as you know, the 25-foot length or the 12.5-foot length, and they could either be W beam or thry beam, and also the transitions that will tie in the bridge rail or also tie from a thry beam down to a W beam or vice versa. Next, covered in the specification are the end sections, and you can see some pictures of typical end sections. You have your flared end section on the left-hand side, and you have your buffer end on the right-hand side. And you'll notice that we're not talking about safety end treatments or anything along that line. These are generally the items that are covered under M180. And the last thing that's covered under M180 is the hardware. And by that, we're just strictly talking about bolts, nuts, and washers. Generally, most manufacturers will receive those in box quantities, and then we see how they keep up with the identity of that material when they get it together for shipping. And in looking at this slide, these are the only items that are covered under the current specification. Now, in the future, they're working on a version of the specification. And so these items currently are not included. And just to make sure that everybody's familiar with these items, post and blocks. Post and blocks are not covered by the specification, so they can't be included as part of the program. And then steel wire rope and fittings. It's currently included in the specification, or it's currently included in the work plan, but we haven't had any facilities that wanted to apply to become audited. So, you know, that's kind of on hold at this time, but I'll explain something on the last point here to further clarify that. And then your end terminals and your safety end treatments. None of those are included in M180, and all of that stuff is considered safety stuff, proprietary stuff, and it's kind of out of the scope of NTPEP. So that's covered by the DOTs under the programs that they currently operate. And then there is a new version of M180 that has just been balloted, and it includes and it addresses steel posts and steel wire rope, but it doesn't address the end terminals or the safety end treatments. Now, we're currently working with the committee, the specification committee, to go through this balloted version to see how that's going to impact the program, and how we're going to have to make changes and what will be included further. But as of this point, the exact date of the publication for this balloted version hasn't been determined yet. Now, going back to doing an audit, okay, for doing a Guardrail on-site audit for the facility review, when the auditor's out there, he's taking a look at the quality control inspection. And by that, they're looking at the performance. In other words, the people doing the testing or the inspection, are they using the proper techniques? And are they are they doing it to the proper detail and gathering the information needed to determine whether or not you have a quality product. And then also too, they're checking to make sure what they're doing is in compliance with the standards and the specifications. And lastly, they're looking at the equipment to make sure that the equipment being utilized is properly calibrated, properly functioning, and used properly. Also, when we're there for an on-site audit, we're gathering informational stuff that's put into the audit report, such as you'd be able to find out what products are currently being produced by this manufacturer. You know, they can have a wide variety of products or a very limited scope. And then also the standards and specifications that the manufacturer is utilizing. We make sure that they're using the most current up-to-date specifications. And then their quality management system records that they maintain. You know, the audits that they may perform or the calibrations, verification, the management reviews, and any corrective actions that they have. We're looking at everything that they do from a paperwork standpoint in order to have a more robust quality program. And the information gathering and review of the facility processes also include the following. When we're looking at the on-site audit facility review, when we're looking at the inspection personnel, we're looking to see how are they trained, how much training do they get, how do they make sure that people that are released to do stuff independently have reached the point of knowledge to be able to do the testing or inspection properly. And then, as I mentioned earlier, are they also performing competency evaluations? And what you're really trying to accomplish there is this person has been trained. Hopefully the training took properly, or the training was proper for what they needed to do. And the competency evaluation lets you determine as time goes on whether or not that person still maintains that same level of quality. Then we look at the manufacturing product identification markings. With AASHTO M180 guardrails, the beam sections are required to be marked in a certain fashion. And we verify all of that. And we also, on items that don't require markings as stated in AASHTO M180, we work with them to figure out how they keep up with the identity of the product. From when it came in, it's marked or identified and comes with paperwork. Through each fabrication stage, all the way through the complete product, how do they keep up with the identity, and what worksheets do they fill out, or information do they maintain? And then, as stated earlier, we look at the quality control inspection records that they keep. And we look at the detail of what they keep, as I said, and also the frequency of the testing and inspection. Some of the specifications of the work plans have frequencies, minimum frequencies that they have to maintain. And the audit program process verifies what the facility says that they routinely do. Now, the important thing is traceability. Now, as I stated a couple of times, material comes in and it's identified, and it comes with certain documentation. And that could be raw materials or finished items that are furnished as part of the total package they ship out. For example, some guardrail manufacturers may only make beams, but they don't make the flared end sections, or they don't make the transitions. They purchase those. What documentation and paperwork do they get with that, and what information does that contain? We've take a look at all that to make sure they have traceability. And then the identifications maintained during all stages of fabrication, and that includes galvanizing. So you have stuff that's identified up to a point, and then it's taken out and galvanized, and it comes back. And do they maintain, and how do they maintain that identity so that they know what went out is what came back? And lastly, we look at the identification and documentation for the items that they furnish to the either to the subcontractors, the contractors, or in some cases even straight to the DOT. Are they supplying the proper information that's needed? Now, the most important thing here is I've never mentioned the phrase "Buy America" because NTPEP does not verify Buy America. This is a DOT function. What we do is determine whether or not they have traceability, that they have a system in place, because Buy America requirements vary from state to state, and it's the responsibility of the manufacturer to comply with the requirements that that the state transportation agencies need. And only the DOTs can address Buy America to meet the CFR requirements. NTPEP verifies that the facility can trace the steel and iron items, though. Now, when it comes to the Guardrail audit, what we do for various audit programs, it could either be what we call a comparison testing, where it's not truly a split sample, but we take a sample and they take a sample. Both items are tested and the results are reported side by side. But for Guardrail and several other items that are similar, what we do is a conformance report. In other words, we take a sample of product that should meet the specification, have it tested by our NTPEP designated laboratory, and then report the results. So we take random samples, and what we do for Guardrail is we're taking sample of the base metal that's used to make the Guardrail off of the steel coils that they purchased. Okay, the steel coils come, they have identification, they come with a mill test report. We gather that information. We gather a sample like you see there. That's sent off. Dog bones and whatever is required is taken out of that material. And they're looking for yield strength, ultimate tensile strength, elongation, base metal thickness. All of those requirements are outlined in M180 as to what it needs to be. And then also for galvanizing, we will go ahead and take an item that has been galvanized that the manufacturer has, and we send that along, and then that's evaluated for weight of coating and thickness of the coating to make sure that that covers the requirements of the specification. And once again, it's sent to our NTPEP designated laboratory, which Justin said earlier is the Missouri DOT, and they're checking for conformance with the work plan requirements. So the NTPEP program helps the DOT understand the facility's quality system in a lot more detail. Now, what happens next is we have the Guardrail audit results. So auditors out there doing everything, we're sending off samples to be tested. And so you end up with the audit results. And when you look on DataMine, and you've heard this several times, and it'll be explained in more detail here in a minute, the audit results, you have an audit report, either a conformance or a compliance report, depending upon the what's utilized for the product in the audit program. Any corrective action reports, complete reports, if they were issued for issues found during the audit, the markings that are utilized by the facility. Sometimes it's required to have markings and sometimes it's not. So there'll be a marking report out there and it'll either show they utilize markings or they don't. And then the last item that we have out there is a compliance authentication, which basically shows that they've been audited and they've maintained their compliance. And the DOTs are responsible for establishing their criteria for acceptability. Some of them utilize the compliance authentication. And so when you look at the DataMine website setup, you'll see that the manufacturer is considered compliant, and he's compliant as long as the facility is compliant within the NTPEP audit program. If he's found non-compliant, then his status is switched over. So even though a manufacturer may show you a compliance authentication, it is always best to go back and look at what is on DataMine status. And once again, this program is set up for the DOTs to utilize this information. So therefore, you're responsible for establishing your criteria for product acceptability. Just NTPEP compliance should not be used for acceptance. And complete audit results, as it stated there, are located on the database called DataMine, and it's got password protected access. And Matt's going to get into a lot more detail about DataMine. But hey, I know you guys are hungry for another poll question, so we're going to give you another one right here. And what we'd like to find out is, are you aware, has anyone from your state attended an NTPEP audit for any of the products that NTPEP does an audit, or have they ever viewed a virtual audit? So take your choice of either yes, no, or if you don't know, be honest and click I don't know. And we should have results showing up now. And as you can see, hey, good to see that. We got a majority of the people have been on audits. For those of you that don't know, or those of you that said no, hey, we strongly encourage you to join us on our audits when we go, because it's a good learning experience. It's also good to get to know the people that you're dealing with that are supplying your products, and they get to know you. And now we'll go ahead and pass it along to Matt Blumen, and he will talk to you about DataMine.
Thank you, Cyrus. So for those of you that have used DataMine, some of this should look familiar. And if you haven't, I'm going to go through the layout of how DataMine displays information for your state consumption. When you first go into a facility, the facility information tab gives contact information, whether it's the manufacturer, the representative. We have several companies that have many facilities, so they'll have a manufacturer representative that's across the corporation. And then we have facility representatives that are more catered towards that exact facility. The facility information tab also includes the quality system. The manufacturers have to upload this during the application process, so we keep those on DataMine as a repository, and we try to keep updated versions throughout the year if manufacturers make updates during the reviews as well. Pre-audit applications can give more information about the facility, including the products manufactured, and those are listed on this tab as well. For different modules inside of DataMine, there's optional material that's listed here as well. But for the Guardrail module, that's all that's on the facility information tab. The bulk of what you're after is on the audit information tab. So the top part, again, is going to list the status of the audit, whether it's been completed, what the auditor's name is, the audit date, information like that. The bottom part of the page includes audit reports. And this is the section you need to be logged in to view. So if you're ever browsing through any of the audit programs and looking for a facility, and you come across this audit report section and it has some type of warning that says you don't have the permissions to view this area, then you want to reach out to us at NTPEP to either get a login, or if you do have a login, then you might just not have the right access at the current time. We don't default your views to all of the modules just to reduce notifications. So if there's a case where you're just missing access to certain modules, just reach out to NTPEP and we can adjust those appropriately. Underneath of the audit report section, you can see here's some example documents for our mock facility. The compliance authentication, as Cyrus mentioned, is available. And this basically gives the facility a little bit of comfort, saying, here's a certification for all your troubles. But again, it's sort of a snapshot in time that you usually want to check DataMine to make sure everything's still in good standing, even if they've provided a compliance authentication. We also list the final audit reports along with any corrective actions that are applied to that, the comparison audit result, which is their testing results. And for Guardrail, again, that's more of a conformance testing because the facility doesn't test the material themselves. So it's just our test laboratory, Missouri DOT, conducting that testing. And then we also have a file that includes the standard markings used by that facility. So we wanted to ask everyone on the line if you have login credentials for Datamine. So please answer either yes, no, or I don't know. And as we're waiting for those results, if you currently don't have a Datamine login or don't have access to the module you're looking for, again, reach out to us and we can make that adjustment for you on our end of the system. So it looks like a majority of you do have access. 20% said no and 15% said I don't know. If you're not sure if you have login credentials, you can always, again, reach out to us and we can let you know, or you can type in your state email address and click forgot password to see if you do have one that shows up. But again, please reach out if you're looking for access for a certain module or to create your initial login credentials. So now we're going to move into state testimonials, where the states can give you a little bit more of an idea of exactly how they utilize NTPEP in their states.
Thanks, Matt and SARS, for all of that really good information there. So now we'll get into how Louisiana uses this audit program. We rely heavily on NTPEP here in Louisiana since all of our approved guardrail manufacturers are outside the state of Louisiana. The closest one, I believe, is North Mississippi or even Fort Worth, which are both about 7.5 hours from where I am in Baton Rouge. So traveling to those is almost out of the question. So with using NTPEP, that's additional time and money saved with our ever increasing shortages in travel budget. As well as Louisiana doesn't really have an established criteria for how to do an on-site audit. So we don't really have the technical expertise or really any personnel who could do that. So we relinquish a lot of this responsibility by outsourcing this to NTPEP. The virtual audits that were offered during COVID or limited on-site personnel or inspectors was, it was fantastic. NTPEP also provides, like you saw, the traceability of the documents that they conducted, and they upload everything to Datamine. So NTPEP also takes off the workload of reviewing the quality management system. They review the QA/QC from the manufacturer, which we still require for Louisiana to be placed on our approved materials list. But at least you have some other eyes going over it, and they can mark it up and let you know if anything's missing. Again, like I said, the traceability of documents, like SARS said, the testing equipment used, the calibration reports, and if the technicians were certified to even do that calibration or testing in the facility. So NTPEP, as well, as you've heard, they procure the samples and they send them to the testing lab, which is the Missouri DOT. The reporting of results is huge to look at what the actual base metal got and compare it to your specifications established by your agency. And another reason is that Louisiana's paying, we already pay for the AASHTO NTPEP information. So this is just an added bonus for us that we wouldn't be able to have a way of tracking these guardrail manufacturers at all. And then we kind of touched over the annual brand registration guarantee. That was a big deal for us. That's still, we're working on that. It's still optional at this point. We're hoping that it really, digs its teeth in and starts working, because the annual brand registration guarantee established by this technical committee satisfies the needs of Louisiana and some of the other states. So again, it's a one-stop shop for someone like me here in Louisiana, that I can look at all the audit information, the test results. I can see the non-conformities findings and those resolutions. They make it really nice, color coordinated in those reports on if anything was a non-conformity, it's red. If it was resolved, it's in green. You know, it's pretty straightforward. Again, I mentioned annual bread registration and guarantee, which is the minimum requirements established by AASHTO M180. So what this picture is here is the first page of Louisiana's qualification procedure for metal beam for highway guardrail. From that, you can see that we do require the AASHTO NTPEP program, along with a completed approved form that is, specific to Louisiana, a letter from the manufacturer to us saying, hey, we'd like to be listed on your approved materials list. We get an outline of their quality assurance and sampling and testing program. We take a look at their identifications, their brand trademark, and that's listed internally here in Louisiana so that our inspectors can verify where the material is coming from. We look at their product data sheets, their specifications, any of their other independent laboratory testing, as well as NTPEP. We look at their safety data sheets, and then as you see, that last bullet is requiring the AASHTO audit program. So I also included a link here. I don't know if it'll work, but we'll get that included into the recorded version. And if you ever need anything, feel free to contact me or visit Louisiana's Materials Lab website, and it's all very easy to find there. So that's really all I have from Louisiana. I'd like to pass it off to Cabell Garvey with North Carolina.
Okay, so I'll be brief because in a nutshell, I feel like I can almost say, yeah, what Louisiana said, almost. We require NTPEP for all materials with an available program because it streamlines approval for a new producer or facility. It reduces the time since we don't have to schedule an audit and travel and obtain samples and test them at the lab. It's more efficient for the state because I can put my people where they need to be and not have them traveling around to do an audit that SARC and the crowd have already done. And it provides consistency with other state DOTs. We don't go into a facility and hear that our neighbors were there the week before, the month before, and looked at exactly the same thing. And it makes it easier on a producer because they've got one set of rules that they're sharing with all of us. It eliminates our annual facility audits. So as I said, it keeps us from having to travel out of state. We don't have to go to Texas or Ohio or other places, and it reduces our staff because, like a lot of people, we've lost a lot of staff recently. We've lost a lot of expertise, so we can focus where we're needed instead of just going out and doing routine visits. We can provide expertise to our resident engineers and checking special activities by projects or assist producers who are having issues without just going out and doing audits to do audits. And as mentioned, we use data mine. We love data mine. It cuts back on what we have to do at the state level. We just go out and do a little shopping on data mine and pull data and review on it. And then we can focus our laboratory efforts on samples from projects or look at some forensic issues if we think we're having some problems on a project. So that's a great help to us. Next slide. Thank you. Project approvals. It streamlines and makes our project approvals a lot easier because producer, supplier, subcontractor on the project goes to an approved facility, orders their rail from them. We spot check it when it arrives on a project. From M&T, we look at the dimensions and the coding systems and just make sure everything looks good. When it's installed by the contractor, our resident engineers check to make sure everything is according to the plans and the drawings. And that provides a reduced risk to an installer because they bought it from somebody we've already vetted through NTPEP. and put on our approved list. So unless they've had an issue with shipping and handling or storage, they know that once they install it, they're going to get paid for it. So it's been a win-win for us.
All right, thanks, Cabell, sorry. So we have one more poll question. So does your state use the NTPEP audits of Guardrail, Guiderail manufacturing facilities? And if not, what is the reason? I'm sorry, I misread that. Does not use it. If you do not use the audit program. Okay, so I see 84% or other. I assume that means they probably do use something similar or maybe even NTPEP. All right, so kind of to wrap everything up, why consider adopting the Guardrail Audit Program? So it uses the requirements established by the AASHTO M180, which is used by all DOTs. It is the intent is to make an even playing field for all producers that have to meet the same baseline standard of producing material. It can help to enhance your current acceptance of Guardrail products by eliminating the things that we've said, as far as, not having the expertise or the travel or having to do the testing and purchase the equipment and have the technicians trained. It can reduce your quality assurance efforts that you currently perform. It can even replace your audit efforts altogether. So I'd like to just kind of go over our Guardrail Committee. So the NTPEP Highway Guardrail Technical Committee is comprised of AASHTO member departments and members of industry. The members are volunteers who are interested in the advancement of the product, and the technical committee appoints a chair and a vice chair. So Louisiana is the chairing state, West Virginia is vice chair. We have Alabama, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Massachusetts. Oh, I listed Massachusetts twice. That's nice. Missouri, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Vermont. If you please feel free to join and help grow this technical committee, reach out to me, Ron, anyone, Matt, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. I'd also like to thank our industry members. We have Gregory Corporation, RG Steel, Trinity Industries, Highway Safety Corps, and Universal Industrial Sales. They are the ones who get on our conference calls. We have other manufacturers, Samuelson and Incorporated, Mid Park Highway, SPIG Industries. So the knowledge that they provide is extremely valuable. They give us insight and information on how the manufacturing process works, what the states are requiring, if it's even feasible. And together, the state and industry, we strive to meet in the middle and provide a quality product that is safe, reliable, and consistent nationwide. Some information here. There's my contact, my email. You have Ron's contact with West Virginia, and you also have Matt, who's our liaison for NTPEP. We're always looking for input on how to make the Guardrail work plan, SPO1, and any other user guides more comprehensive and clear. So again, if you'd like to participate in this process or know someone that would benefit by joining this technical committee, please reach out to one or all of the individuals located on this slide. So here you go. One more poll question. Would you or someone in your agency like to be added to the Guardrail Technical Committee? Yes, please. I thought you'd never ask. I have someone in mind and we'll share the information with them and get back with you. I'm already a member of the TC, or no thanks. I'd like to see the person who said, yes, please. I thought you'd never ask. Please reach out to me, Ron, and Matt, and we'll get you the information to get on here. That's good. We see about almost half of the people on this are technical committee members. So other ways to get involved with NTPEP is to join, a steering committee. They have multiple technical committees that cover all sorts of materials. There's other audit programs. You can become a NTPEP voting or a non-voting member. Non-voting, you can just stay up to date with the changes to the work plans for your individual technical committee. You can become a voting member and be the champion for your state. You can participate in the NTPEP data usage surveys that are sent out. Again, you could become the champion for your state of whatever interests you. There's a lot of technical committees out there, so I urge you to go to the NTPEP website and see what they offer. Or, you can use it just as ways to connect with other states in your region and see how they utilize NTPEP. And maybe it'll give you ideas of how your agency can take some of the work off of your hands. So our next Guardrail quarterly meeting is scheduled for May 18th at 1 p.m. This will be done virtually through Zoom and using the phone call. During these calls and annual meetings, we go over the updates on how many manufacturers have been audited for the calendar year, how many remain to be audited, what the status of those audits are, whether they're in the initial review, the desk review, et cetera. We discuss potential changes and additions to the Guardrail work plan, SPO1, or any other pertinent information related to Guardrail, especially with the updates that SARS mentioned to the changes of AASHTO M180. A lot of information can be found there. Our next annual meeting is in Nashville for June 26th through the 30th. The Guardrail technical session is working session 2 at Monday, June 27th from 12:30 to 1:45 CST. And I hope to see most of you there. Matt, you want me? I'll just go ahead and take this one. The next webinar is going to be on high friction thin overlays, HFTO, and that's scheduled for May 17th, 2022 at 11 a.m. EST. And I'd like to thank everyone for their participation and joining on. And at this time, we'll take any and all questions.
Justin?
Yes, sir.
This is Danny Lane, Tennessee.
Hey, Danny.
Very, very good webinar, Sark, and all you guys. We've actually been using this from the very beginning. We have a producer list. We're excited. We do all the NAP programs on a producer list. And just to let you know, it's proven that manufacturer or producer knows how to produce that product you're buying from it. And the Guardrail Guarantee, Justin, we've been doing that for years. We took the Guardrail Guarantee for the sheet beam and stuff like that, but we also added other things to the Guardrail Guarantee that we use that. We've been using that for several years, even though it's been revamped in 180. So very good job with this technical committee. That was a great webinar, Justin, and it's very informative and straight to the point. And I don't know how states couldn't get by with use. There's no way we could do this inside our with our field ops and other things like that with all the audits. We can't do 80 facilities which we use across the United States. And I just want to say that this program has been a big shot in the arm for Tennessee DOT. We use it every day, so we're excited about it. And thanks for all the hard work, guys.
Thank you, Danny. And do we have anyone else? Well, then I'd like to take this time to again thank everyone who helped with this presentation and who presented, Matt Blumen, SARS, Cabell, Bill Reel, Ron, and Catherine. Couldn't have done it without y'all. And if you have any questions that come to your mind later, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Justin, and thank everybody else. This presentation was recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel in a very soon date, and we'll send out a notification to all the NTPEP members to let you know when that's available if you want to share with your staff. All right, everybody have a good one.